Hey everyone, it is the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. Hope everybody had a great holiday. Got some stuff to talk about with regard to the holiday. So let's just see where that goes. But in the meanwhile, welcome to Dentist in the Know. This is your backstage pass for current trends, politics, and education in the dental world. It is live and it's over a cocktail or your favorite wine. I haven't even poured my first glass yet. I'm a little stressed. You know why? I'm a little stressed because Chad's not here tonight, and he usually handles all the pre-show stuff. I just talk to our guests and tell them what we're going to do, what we're not going to do, what we're going to talk about. And Chad does all the behind the scenes, getting the logos and everything up. But guess what? It's all good. Today's show is sponsored by our great friends and our educational partners at AIDA and AIDA Education, the American Independent Dental Alliance. We are so excited to be partnered with them. But for right now, we are going to introduce my co-host, Dr. Jennifer Bell. Let's see if I can bring her up. And here she comes. I'm so excited to see you, JB. I'm so glad.
You.
Thank you. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
It was nice. How was yours?
It was great, except for the loony uncle that broke the rule of not talking politics on Thanksgiving. So we'll get into that a little bit because we did happen to get into a little fluoride discussion. And he seemed to think he would know more about that topic as I had, because I think he was like a school custodian or something. So
right.
Yeah, which absolutely qualifies him to know more than I do about the subject of fluoride in dentistry. But that's neither here nor there. Do I sound bitter? Maybe a little bit.
No.
Anyway, let me get back to my intro, JB. I was just so excited to see you, and I couldn't wait to bring you up. Anyway, as I said, this is your backstage pass for current trends, politics, and education in the dental world. We're live. I now have a glass of wine, and life is good with my friend JB. So tonight we have a great guest. As I said, this show is sponsored by AIDA Education, and one of the great AIDA educators and dental educators in general is with us tonight. Amber Auger, who is a registered dental hygienist and probably knows more about the oral systemic connection than just about anyone I've heard on the lecture circuit. And so I'm sure we're going to have some really great spirited discussions tonight. But for the time being, you know, JB and I, we are both educators. We are both dentists, and we are both business owners. I think we're still business owners. Are we still business owners?
Most days.
Yeah, most days that we want to be.
That's right.
And our job is, you know what our job is, JB?
I think bring all of them in the
know or something like that?
Yeah.
It's literally been 3 weeks since I've been on air, so I don't even know what to say anymore, because it's just, I'm so out of practice. After 3 weeks, it was my wife's birthday, and then we had Thanksgiving with my dorkhead uncle, and then now it's 3 weeks later. What do you do about that?
I know. I don't know.
Yeah. So family's good. Everybody was good. You had a normal Thanksgiving?
Yeah, actually it was pretty normal. My mother-in-law hosted, which was nice. So she took a lot of the responsibility of the cooking. So I did most of the cleaning, which was good. And we spent some time out on our farm hunting and kind of doing, more of the winter fall type activities, and just kind of regrouping for a very fast Christmas season, because it's super consolidated and trying to get ready for everything at one time. So zero complaints other than the fact that it came so late in November this year.
Yeah. What'd you hunt for?
I didn't hunt, but they were hunting. They were hunting for duck and for deer.
Oh.
And a bobcat did get also
mutilated.
He wasn't mutilated, but one of the guys that was with us for the weekend, who is an owner with us in the farm, he was deer hunting on Sunday and got a nice buck. And then, sorry for all my PETA vegan, vegetarian friends. And a bobcat was then going to take advantage of that buck.
He was moving in.
It just sort of worked out that way.
Gotcha. Anyway. Well, that sounds exciting. So Thanksgiving here was amazing, other than the crazy uncle who just cannot help himself. And, I don't want to talk politics with somebody that, that on any holiday, honestly. Family, it's like I love when the family is together, and we have so many things that we can laugh and joke about. And why does that have to be one of them when we know a few of us are not going to necessarily agree? And we're not saying anyone's right, anyone's wrong, just saying, hey, let's just leave this off the table for tonight. So I was cooking the turkey out in the guest house, and which was kind of nice because we had 20 people in the house. And so I was able to kind of get away a little bit from all the craziness while I was carving the turkey. But it's still stressful when you're putting food out for that many people. So I kind of went out there just to kind of get in my zen, had my glass of wine, had my music going out there, and I'm carving the turkey and I'm happy. All my people are home and life is good. And then he walks in. He cornered me. I know I shouldn't talk politics on Thanksgiving. And I was like, then don't. And he said, I know, but I'm so curious because, you're such a nice guy, which is why I don't understand your politics. I'm like, really? Really? That's what you're going to lead with? I said, let's leave all this off the table. Can we not just have family together?
Just leave the turkey on the table, please.
Yeah. And then he's like, I just got it. He just kind of poke. And then he made a comment about fluoride. And then I had the electric carving knife in my hand. And I just stopped it and I held the knife out like this. And I kind of lost it. And I was so disappointed in myself. I actually put a post on our Facebook page about that because, I'm one of those people that can really kind of keep my emotions, in check, especially, with what we all do. We kind of have to sometimes.
Sure.
And you just, you put it aside, and then finally someone just gives you that last nudge that you lose control of what you thought you had such good control of. And I did. I let him have it. And it was okay, though, because there was plenty of wine, plenty of after dinner drinks, and my mood improved sitting far away from him and having my family. And my new fire pit from Wake Forest, North Carolina.
Oh, yes.
Was ablaze, which was pretty
Are you enjoying
cool.
it?
Oh, my gosh. It is awesome. So I'm going to throw this out there. I'm throwing this guy a bone because he hooked me up. He got this thing ready within a week. Like, he kind of pushed me to the front. He's like, I'll work it out with you. He's like, if you can come get it on Sunday, I'll have it ready for you. I'll even take my forklift, put it in your truck. And so I did that last last Sunday before Thanksgiving, coming back from the meeting in St. Pete. I flew into Raleigh, drove a pickup truck over to his house on Sunday. He put it in, and the name of these fire pits are Firebol, Firebol. They are custom made in Wake Forest. People travel from all over. The guy couldn't be any nicer. I felt like very reasonable for the craftsmanship and everything that went into it. We're not getting anything. They are not a sponsor. They are not anything. I just love the guy and I love my fire pit. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that part's good.
I think you may have to post a picture of it now.
Yeah. You know what? I didn't even think to do that, but I'm going to. And he wants me to send them a picture of the fire pit in action, but it's a good size. It's like 48 inches wide. He welded a really nice pedestal on it for us, and I just love it, and it's cool.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Did you get one with peaches beside it?
So he asked me if I wanted a cooking grate for the top of it.
Only
And
to put peaches on it.
I, and I was like, if you make me a cooking grate that size, 48 inches wide, there will be a domestic, not so domestic animal laying on top of it.
Yeah. Oh, Peachy the pig.
That's all I'll be able to think
Yeah.
about. But
And Jenny will divorce you. So
exactly.
that'll be the
Exactly.
end.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're missing Chad tonight. He is freshly back from Germany, and he was over there with a dental partner and in the industry, and he was doing some really cool KOL work, learning about new products. So I can't wait to hear what he has to say. And by the way, guess where I'm going to be this weekend?
Where?
You know that. You know the answer.
Tejas?
I'm gonna be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area,
I know.
namely Keller, Texas, with Chad. The Dinks are going to be working together. JB couldn't make it out there, but she will be piping in virtually, and we're gonna get some stuff done and talking about all the exciting things that we have coming down the pike for 2025. So with that said, I think we should let you do some news.
I think we should. There's a
Okay.
lot going on, actually, but not surprising coming off an election. There's just a buzz of activity. So, you ready?
I might let you talk to my Uncle Larry about the whole fluoride thing too.
Oh, yeah. You'll have
Yeah,
to fill us in. Maybe
he
Amber
didn't. He
can
didn't
participate
seem
in
to
that
think my
conversation.
credentials were good enough to talk on that issue.
Right.
Maybe yours will be.
Oh. All right. You ready?
All right, I'm ducking down.
Okay.
Go for it, JB.
So, the big news of the day, not of the week, but of the day, was the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was killed in the street, essentially, in New York early this morning. So that just happened. There's no information yet on who the killer may be. There is a video of the killer taking him down. It seemed like a very targeted attack. That's all I currently know. I don't work for a mainstream media outlet, but as dentists, certainly it's of interest when our insurance companies are having this type of publicity. So, anyway, more to come on that, I'm sure. If you were ever a client of Smile Direct Club, especially at the end when all the mayhem was going down and they shut business very quickly and denied many people refunds and also required many folks to continue to pay for their commitment that they had made, even though the services had ceased, there is some financial hope for you. There was a ruling that just happened this week by the New York State Attorney General, and it has mandated that Smile Direct Club will be refunding up to $4.8 million back to their customers. That is in total 28,000 customers would be eligible for the improper billing refund. Many customers were already aware of that and will automatically be issued those refunds. But if you are eligible, we'll post the website that you can click on and go and submit your information online for a refund request, and they will be reviewing those. That came out just yesterday or Monday on December 2nd. That information was released. And so anyway, some hope, optimism for those individuals who were being serviced by Smile Direct Club. Just 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Corporate Transparency Act and the requirement for filing. That deadline was January 1, 2025. And the penalties for that particular filing were going to be quite severe. And that was encouraging most small businesses and most dentists would qualify to be able or to are required to go in and complete the paperwork for this particular filing requirement. Well, a Texas court, Eastern District Texan Court, has now ruled against that particular requirement, saying it's unconstitutional and that the Congress does not have the authority to require it. This has now stopped the requirement for the mandated filing with the IRS for the FinCEN. So if you've done it already, I guess you're in compliance. If you haven't yet, you may have just gotten yourself an extension. There's no understanding yet what the FinCEN requirements will be and what this nationwide injunction will mean. But we'll currently try to keep you up to date as we know. But as of today, December 4th, 2024, that requirement has been put on pause based on this current ruling out of Texas. The trial was delayed for a man, and I'm going to be honest, I've read this story a couple of times. I'm pretty sure we talked about it a year or two ago, of a dentist who is accused of killing his wife, mother of 6, poisoned with an attempt of arsenics, and then the final blow was cyanide. He is in Colorado and is starting to have jury selection for his trial when his attorney quit on him, citing that he could no longer work for the dentist because he was asking to do many more things that were unethical and in breach of the law. Don't know what that means, but it can't be good. So our gentleman, our friend from Colorado, our dental colleague, will be looking for a new attorney as his trial continues for his murder charge for his wife. God bless him. Lastly, there was a piece of legislation that was recently introduced that I wanted to open up for debate online. It was unveiled a new healthcare cybersecurity proposal. This proposal came out at the end of November, right around Thanksgiving, presented by both Senator Bill Cassidy and as the ranking member and expected chairman of the Congress of Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, the HELP Committee. The Cybersecurity Act is looking to create a lot more requirements around healthcare entities for reporting, for cybersecurity, for data encryption, regular audits, including penetration tests, multi-factor authentication, and might face heftier fines if there is a breach. And while I know this sounds really great for us as consumers of healthcare, as small business owners, always the issue is what they ask of large hospitals and large entities, and then ultimately what trickles down to small businesses and how can they afford to also put the same implementations in place. And we face this challenge quite often where we're facing similar penalties and similar requirements, and yet major financial institutions and major corporations have the same challenge of keeping their own data secure. So I'm a little skeptical of this particular cybersecurity proposal. I would definitely like to see a lot more of the information in the language. And I think my concern is the increased regulation, fines, penalties, and requirements of small businesses who also host and protect healthcare information, because at some point, a lot of this requirement becomes so cost prohibitive for small businesses to continue to operate in a digital platform. So we'll keep you posted about whether or not we think this will get picked up, but suspect that it will be reviewed more in 2025. And with that, that's the news.
And I'm so much quicker on the trigger than Chad.
So much quicker, but he does it to me on purpose. So
why does he do that?
I don't know.
I'm gonna ask him that. Like, I'm gonna get there and show up. He's gonna pour me a bourbon. We're gonna sit there. We're gonna laugh. I'm like, Chad, why do you do that every week? Why do you take so long to bring us back on after JB does the news? Yeah, that's gonna be my question. So great job. I saw that about the CEO from United Health.
Did you see the video though?
Yeah. I mean, I was
surprised. I can't believe they put it on the news. I mean, it is.
The news that I watched, they did not show any of the shooting, but they showed like until the second before he pulled the trigger. Like it was, I mean, obviously it was a very targeted and well thought out, thing that this guy was doing. But I'll tell you, I always have to wonder, and it did turn out which they didn't say on any of the mainstream media, that there had been some threats, obviously, about claims that hadn't been paid, and people who were upset that United Healthcare wasn't necessarily taking care of their loved ones the way that they thought they should be taken care of. So what an ugly precedent, though, huh?
That would not be good if he, in fact, was. You almost wish it was like personal stuff, like maybe
Right.
a lover issue, an affair, whatever, because you certainly
I don't
do
know
have
if
a
it was
little bit of
unfair. Do you see
concern
that
about
guy?
vigilante justice on the part of insurance, medical providers, lack of payment, like.
Yeah.
Because the trickle down of concern is this: who is the most common messenger of the terrible insurance news? We are,
Yeah, of course.
right? And we
Yeah.
hold that face, and they think we somehow represent. So, like, I really am praying that this is not some claim issue or like lack of payment, because I don't know. It just makes me super
And
anxious.
I mean, we did read a story about someone walking into a dental office
Yeah.
last year in Los Angeles, and who knows if
Yeah.
insurance benefits had anything to do with
I
that.
know. I know.
Yeah,
Well,
scary.
would you like to bring our guest on?
Yes, I think we should do it. So here's to you, Chad, because I can not only read a bio, but I can also bring our guest up at the same time.
Oh, click a button
So
and read
yeah, watch this.
simultaneously.
I am going to bring our guest up, who is Amber Auger. She is a registered dental hygienist. She has a bachelor's in science in dental hygiene. She got that at the University of New Haven. She also has a master's in public health from the University of New England. She has more than 7 years of experience in oral hygiene education. She's been a consultant with people like Jameson Management and RDH Magazine. She served on several dental missions, and she's also a spin instructor with all of her free time that I don't know where she finds. But on a personal note, what I will say is I have had the pleasure of lecturing with Amber Auger. I've had the pleasure of introducing her as a host for multiple audiences. And what I will tell all of you is that no one works harder to stay on top of the current science and present it in a way that people absolutely can absorb in such an uninhibited way. It's such a pleasure to watch her lecture, and I always get as much out of it as anyone in the room, and I always learn something that I'm able to use. By the way, I don't steal your slides. I just want to tell you that.
Thank you.
Anyway, Amber, what a pleasure to have you back. You're also an AIDA educator who is they are sponsoring today's program. They're, of course, a great educational partner for us. And I think you are also going to be with us in Mexico this year for AIDA Aspire, which we'll talk about at the end of the show, and how some of our viewers can still grab a few of the last seats remaining for Aspire. So welcome to the show. It's good to see you. And what's been going on in Boston?
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I will say there's nobody that I've ever crossed a train with before. That's what we have as our history.
I forgot. I wish if Chad were around, I'd have made him put that video up.
Yeah, we can link the video.
Damn it, Chad.
We have it. Well, I'm so excited to be here. Lots has happened since we've last spoke, and I actually joined a new dental practice back here in August, and it's been a very interesting year as far as professionally and personally goes. It's been a lot of transitions. I don't think I'll ever pray for things that aren't aligned to just be torn apart again. It's almost like praying for patience, and it all comes at once. But it's all been good changes.
Good deal. So tell me, because we talked very briefly before the show, and I think, especially given our educational partner, the American Independent Dental Alliance, who's really fighting so hard to keep independent dentistry alive, I think your story just really resonates with the messaging of AIDA, and I really would love for our listeners to hear about this. And this is not, this is not to beat up on private equity or anything, but some things changed for you as a group that came in and bought the practice that you were working in, and apparently there were some changes that were really you couldn't tolerate. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So I had been in the practice. I was hired in November of 2019, and I was hired to be the dental hygiene fixer. So before entering into the practice, there really wasn't a strong preventative protocol, and there was really a lack of continuity between providers. It was one dentist who owned about 60 locations throughout New England, who had honestly a hit or miss reputation. And I took the interview and thought it was for a director of hygiene role. And long story short, he said, actually, no, I really want you to be the hygiene fixer. And I said, well, I don't know how that's really going to work. I don't think you can successfully have somebody go in part-time and rotate between practice to practice, being a clinician, and build continuity. I think you really have to stay in one location, because from my experience, what happens is once you educate a patient that they need, non-surgical periodontal therapy, they typically want to stay with that same provider. And, it's a trusted face. I don't think that me coming in and recommending perio and then moving on to the next patient is really going to give you what you're looking for and really build the practice correctly. So what we ended up compromising on was me staying in the location I was at, and I did 2 days a week. And honestly, it was an amazing opportunity. So I worked on a base overall compensation plus commission. And there were some days where I was producing 3 to 4K a day, which was great for me, great for the practice, and it worked very well. And last May, we got bought out by private equity. And I was kind of waiting for the huge change to happen. And luckily for me, nothing really happened until about April of this year. And when April rolled around, I got news that effective immediately, my hourly rate was going to be reduced by $25 an hour. There was really no warning ahead of time, just 25, just a quick $25 an hour. I was also told that, yeah, I mean, why not? And I was also told that not only would this be effective immediately, but every single hygienist on the team was going to be compensated the same, whether you had 20 years of experience or have been, out of school for 5 months. And for me, that's obviously just didn't sit well. So instead, I was able to obviously pull my numbers and say, well, let's talk about the numbers. I know that, my numbers have been lower, but let's talk about the percentage of patients we've lost with, changing the dentist. We've had 4 dentists in 4 years. It's very hard to keep patients when their restorative provider is changing. And let's talk about what we can do to fill the schedule. What does it look like from a team approach? And it just there wasn't an alignment. So long story short, I gave notice, and I ended up finding a new practice that has been honestly everything I could have wanted. Private practice owner, newer grad, really hungry to learn, does phenomenal dentistry, just nerds out with me. So it's been a really awesome time. He also has fallen in love with my dog, Margot. So Margot is coming to work with me and using her certification as a dental therapy dog. So it's all worked out great.
That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
JB, what are your thoughts on this? Because as someone that has, had her practices transition, how does that resonate with you?
So the one thing I will say is that private equity means a lot of things. Like there's a whole wide range of what that looks like. And the size and scope of them are also very different as well. So some do, I think, have the good intention of wanting to be partners with their practices that they acquire and really want to see them grow. Although, to Amber's point, many of them are just looking at the metrics and maybe don't fully understand the business of dentistry. And so that can be challenging at times, for sure. And if you just see it as a commodity and a widget maker, then you are more inclined to put everybody on the same playing field, regardless of experience. But that can be true for all providers, dentists, dental assistants, and hygienists as well, regardless of skill set. So, I just think it's such an interesting environment that we're living in right now. And a lot of this is sort of getting settled out. It is interesting to see how it has a lot of similarities to what medicine went through about a decade ago, but actually a lot of resistance and a lot of, flags have been planted in the ground. And, a lot of small practices are really trying to stay true to being the independent practices that they are. So I don't know. I have to say, for all providers, they make those decisions that are very personal for a lot of different reasons. And if you're not in the room when it happens, you don't always know. But like with Amber, I respect the fact that it just wasn't the right fit for her anymore. And honestly, probably opened up a better door and a new opportunity that she maybe would never have pursued before. So it is creating an interesting ripple in the market, an interesting change of how people are looking or moving within careers and kind of shaking things up a bit. So a lot's to be determined and a lot's to be settled about what this will really look like for dentistry, I think, in the next 5 to 8 years for sure.
I can't help but think that that we're going to kind of see the pendulum swing back a little. I think the more that these large groups and even some of the smaller private equity groups and DSOs create, I think we're starting to see a vacuum almost, and such a need for personalized care, and so I think that people, and it sounds egotistical to say it, but people like us, the three of us on here, who are out there trying to educate people in ways to differentiate your practice, and particularly you, Amber, how to not just differentiate yourself as a dentist, which I think you do a tremendous job of. I mean, the things that you offer to your audiences, not just the hygienists, but the dentists as well, as to how to differentiate your practice, but also for the rest of the clinical team, like the hygienist. Here's how you differentiate yourself and make your resume look very, very different than everyone else that's applying for that same position, and how they can change your practice.
It's so important. And I think the beautiful thing is, I could have sat there with resistance. I could have decided to stay because you just loved my patients, and then, just been so irritated and come in jaded. And instead I just exited the team, and I didn't let it become a story about this is me and my service as a provider. It all came down to numbers. Had the team said, hey, look, like, it doesn't make sense to pay you this hourly rate because the schedule's not as filled, etc., and we would have met halfway, I would have stayed. But I'm grateful that wasn't the case, because it did open up such a different opportunity. And what's really fun about the new practice that I'm in is there's a really big dichotomy between patient populations. So the dentist actually purchased one location of a DSO where this location had failed. And so half of our patient population is state insurance, and the other half is cash pay, private pay. So what's really fun is it almost feels like I'm using my public health hat and working on my Spanish, and figuring out, okay, if you can't afford a water flosser, what can we give you? And it's been really fun to feel like I'm a part of a greater mission. We do a lot of work in the community as well, giving back. So it's just a great team to be a part of.
Well, speaking of public health, I mean, I think, we have to open up Pandora's box here a little bit, as Jeff's uncle also did in his credentials as a master fluoridation specialist. That is a title. I feel confident.
At the University of Colorado, janitorial services, not knocking janitorial services or custodial services, just saying that doesn't necessarily make you an expert on water fluoridation.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So obviously there's been a lot of debate, a lot of
Yes.
discussion about its role in public health, its role in the municipal water supply. Putting your public health hat on for a moment, how do you feel?
So I think this is what's not really being talked about enough is from a public health standpoint. Even with some dental professionals, we're thinking, well, everybody, if you don't want to use fluoride, then use a hydroxyapatite or use something different. But not every community has the funds to be able to invest in the products that are a higher price point of prevention. And when we look at the science behind what fluoride has done, it has done a phenomenal job of preventing tooth decay, especially when we are having that systemic fluoride in the water. Now, we could debate all of the overall studies, and most of those studies are done where there's 10 times the amount of fluoride in the water that we deem as safe currently. So it becomes a really interesting space, right? I'm going to handle this conversation differently than I would with a patient versus another dental professional. But essentially, the conversation that I'm having with the patient is, of course, there's a difference between systemic fluoride and topical fluoride. And let's make sure that you have the correct information that you need. If you're not going to use fluoride, then, here are some other products. But we need to have, in my opinion, I believe that we should be keeping it in our water. And this is based off of me going to multiple countries abroad and hiking village to give services. And I've seen firsthand what it looks like to witness a 7-year-old who has bombed out 6-year-old molars that need to be extracted, that are decaying, just the outer shell of the tooth because they didn't have fluoride in the water. And then I've seen what it looks like to treat a 40-year-old who's never had access to any tooth, prevention in regards to cleanings or a dentist, and they have no decay, and maybe a little bit of periodontal disease, but they've been chewing on echinacea trees, and miraculously their diets are not super inflammatory, and they have plenty of fluoride in their water that has really kept that enamel sound.
So I think that's the real discussion here, is that we need to be able to have more of these open discussions, because not just shut it down. Oh, we absolutely have to have fluoride in the water. No, we absolutely shouldn't have fluoride because it's a neurotoxin. That somewhere in between all of that are the truths, not the truth, but the
Right.
truths, which are, we know that it has helped eradicate one of the most prevalent diseases known to mankind, that has afflicted a lot of children and just communities, particularly communities, as you said, that have limited resources. But over time, we also know that more and more products have incorporated fluoride into the water that they're using. So there's so many discussions as to how tightly do we regulate, the water departments to make sure that they are under 1 part per, or at 1 part per million of fluoride. And then how do we educate the patients to say, okay, if you're living in an area where there's a fluoridated water supply, don't be getting all these other systemic fluoride products. And then how do we create the disclosure, from those products to say, hey, we've got fluoride in the water that we're using for this product. And I don't know, there just needs to be so much more discussion, and we need to all be able to come from the wings a little bit.
100%. And I think that's what's been so challenging. We won't talk politics, but when we need to be able to come together and collaborate. And I'm so grateful that I have friends in the dental space and friends outside of the dental space that I can say, tell me how you feel. Let's do like a non-judgment type situation. And I want to hear your perspective on this. And, oh, have you seen this study? And, oh, okay, let me read this. And at the end of the day, when a patient's sitting in your chair, it's their body. And if they're convinced that this is not something that is going to keep them healthy, then there needs to be a conversation around, if you're not going to use this product and use this for prevention, then I need you to have this as an alternative. And I think that is really where it's our unique overall perspective. I'm not anti-fluoride, but I also do believe that we have slapped on fluoride varnishes on patients that have airway problems, on patients that have a diet problem, have a biofilm control problem, and kind of, said our little prayers over that fluoride thinking it's going to be the end all be all. And I don't think fluoride is the end all be all, but I do think in this specific case, when we look at the overall patient population, not every patient, if we take out that fluoride, we're going to see much greater rates of decay. And what are we going to do with those patients who don't have access to care? Now those patients are going to end up with higher medical bills, and it's overall systemic issues that are going to continue to be undertreated.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going to step away for 1 second. Apparently we have a gas and spark issue in my home.
Okay.
So
please don't burn down.
When Ginny comes out here during Dinks, I know there's a problem.
Go.
So
get out of here. What are you waiting
Why are you still here?
All right.
Why are you still talking?
I'm ducking out for 1 minute. Hang on.
Why are you still talking?
I know. Why are you still talking? I think you bring up a really valid conversation point that before we start slapping on all of the treatment modalities, the preventative strategies, even like the electric toothbrushes and the air flossers and all the things, including fluoride and hydroxyapatite, whatever, you don't have any comprehension on etiology, why the disease exists. Because to your point, you can have one person come in who hasn't used a toothbrush in 10 years, and maybe there's some mild perio, but you're frankly disappointed, like it's a little bit of a gut punch that you're that irrelevant, and then you can have another person who's super compliant, comes in every 6 months trying to do everything that you can, and yet the risk profile doesn't seem to change at all. And so I do think dentists would feel so much more empowered if they, and I speak for myself, I would feel so much more empowered if I sat down with every patient and had all the diagnostic tools and capabilities available to me, and then had an algorithm of deployment, like if then this, and we have pieces and we have parts and we have people who are doing really great work to start to put collectively all of that information together. But we also, as general dentists, find ourselves scratching our head going, I don't have the answer. And so all you keep doing is throwing the same preventative strategies at them that may or may not be super effective. And I'm not for giving anyone a medication, a treatment, which would include a root canal and a crown, if I didn't think it would solve or resolve the problem. Like that doesn't seem fruitful to anybody.
Right. Have you ever implemented any salivary testing in your practice?
We did do it for a while. The thing that was incredibly consistent was people who had high risk always pinged with all the things. So, like at some point I got to, the realization that while it was impactful maybe for the patient, I didn't really need the salivary test to validate the findings because, it was always consistently acidic, always consistently high strep mutans, always consistent poor salivary flow. Like there were things that just kept repopulating over and over. So then is it worth the additional expense? Like you wanted more detail. You wanted more than what, maybe an inexpensive, very accessible salivary test would provide. And it's not that I don't see value. It's just putting a patient through it, which is kind of gross. And then, and the statistics coming back so consistent. You're like, well, yeah. All that did was validate to me what I knew, prove to the patient what I thought, and then we could start talking about treatment modalities from there. But I still didn't understand why them.
So I think it just depends on what type of test you are using as well. There's so many different tests out there. So I personally love using it when I'm working with patients from their preventative protocol, because I can determine if, and some of the things that you're going to find, you're going to be able to assess with your kind of clinical experience as well. For instance, if you have a patient that comes in and they're full plaque and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be full-blown scaling, root planing, and you pick up your power instrumentation first because there's so much plaque you can't probe. And you probe and you realize, man, it's like 1 to 3 millimeters, maybe 1 4 millimeter pocket. Like, okay. And that's a patient that obviously was like a slow rate of progression versus Mrs. Jones, who comes in and it's immaculate. And you're like, oh yeah, that's going to be easy, hygiene visit. And you pick up your probe and you're sinking in. Those things you're going to be able to, the first patient's going to have a lot of ammonia in their mouth, where the second patient's going to have some sort of red complex, orange complex, periodontal, high-risk perio. What I love from the test is based off of that specific strain of bacteria that they have, I can then make a preventative protocol that's more based off of what's present. So for instance, if they have AA or PG, I know that I want to eradicate that as soon as possible. Those high virulence factors are going to really impact how the other bacteria in the mouth replicate. It's also going to make the pathogen, the mouth, more acidic long term. So if they have xerostomia, they can't buffer back up. Now I'm really concerned about that patient. So I would do something like an erythritol or a glycine powder subgingival and do a diode laser. And then that way now I know, okay, I'm not just throwing everything in the kitchen sink in my hygiene protocol. I'm not saying they need this rinse and this probiotic and this and this and this, where now I've got somebody on a 20-step 3 times a day program that they can't be compliant with, only to have them kind of have that refractory perio over and over. So that's when I like testing. I can totally see where you're coming from though too. You want to ensure that whatever test you're implementing is helping you make evidence-based decisions, that you feel like it's worth the time of the office as well. Because it's not just the patient. It is a burden on the team if you're not getting ROI out of it. It's a lot more to do. It's to read,
for
follow up with the patient, to charge, to collect. Yep.
Well, and there's the cost associated with all the treatment modalities as well. So you want to really trust the test and believe in the information that you're getting, because it almost always, the disease is there, which led to the test. So you're not surprised that the test verified the disease. But then you're going to make product recommendations, rinses, supplementations, probiotics, all the things you've mentioned, which each have an additional layer of cost. And we are also very anxious about selling that stuff to patients, right? But to your point, the test takes some of the burden away from that. It's just like an intraoral scan or other things, like using an intraoral photo. If I take an intraoral photo of a cracked amalgam, I'm sort of taking away I'm not owning the liability, and I'm giving that liability back to the patient to say, here's what I see. Here's why I'm concerned. How do you feel about it? Do you want to pursue treatment or not? Not so much me pushing and selling that they need to be moving forward with something, even though I think they would benefit from it. It's nice to have them participating in the co-diagnosis and the co-treatment of their care, for sure.
And seeing the proof of disease.
That's right.
Yeah, that's where the trust lies. Yeah.
That's right. The other challenge with fluoride, and I've experienced it with my own kids, is now pediatricians are also applying varnish, which was a super fun visit when they attempted that for my kid for the first time. I don't know. Anyway, I kind of tiger mommed her a bit and just sort of pounced because she said, "Would you like fluoride?" And I said, "No, thank you." And she said, "What's really helpful for," and I said, "Well, have you done a caries risk assessment? And have you cleaned the teeth to remove the biofilm so that it's more effective? And, have you discussed risk benefit? Have you done diet counseling? Have you done all the things that would then justify your treatment? Because if you haven't, then you're just doing unnecessary treatment on my child without justification."
I love that. And I'm glad you did say something.
She was a little taken aback. And I'm pretty sure my charts must be flagged now, because I've never been asked since on any of my kids whether or not they want fluoride. But, sorry. And then she said, "Wow." And I said, "Well, I am a dentist and I don't care that you're doing it, because it has a place. There are people who see their pediatrician more than their dentist, and some who see their dentist more than their pediatrician. But you should know what you're doing."
100%. And I'm glad you brought it up, because this is where the collaborative nature needs to come, right? When we're shortening our thought process to patient care, it can be very dangerous. And then what's happening is just a legacy era. error where you're just, or maybe it is an era.
Yeah, it could be an era.
Or you're in your legacy era of just making
an era of
mistakes,
errors.
or, exactly. Just doing it because that's what you learned to do, but not critically thinking about the why behind it. And
Right.
that's the beauty of evidence-based treatment, is to be thinking of the full why behind it. What populations do need the fluoride? Who is high risk? Is this an airway problem? Is it a biofilm problem? And let's find the root cause versus just slapping a fluoride on and thinking it's going to do all good.
Yeah. And what's the trickle down of exposure for all that? Like, I don't know. I know most GPs are not asking whether or not they've received a fluoride treatment from their pediatrician in the last 6 months. So, how many fluoride treatments are these kids getting now? We're not quantifying that effectively. And then, we really don't have a good dial in yet on the trickle down of its presence in juices and sodas and other things. And while, those aren't super healthy and shouldn't be consumed, there is fluoride in a good number of them because a lot of them are manufactured using municipal water supplies. And so it's just the compounding piece. We just need a better understanding at this point. I'm not super, let's fluoride everybody, and I'm not, let's take it off the shelf. But I think there needs to be a really healthy conversation. Now that we've seen it in action for 60 years, we should have data. And that's what I keep coming back to, is there should at least be data to tell us where is it best deployed? How is it best deployed? How do we support those populations in need? And how, it includes diet counseling and trying to get them on better choices, because as you said, lower inflammatory diets and things that would make them more risk adverse would also be a part of that conversation, not just fluoride alone. So, but it's nice to watch all the organizations just planting their flag on fluoride and saying, we support it. And I think what a missed opportunity. Here's a dental news story. We're front and center, post-election being discussed. How rare is that really for dentists?
Right.
And we just want to stick our flag in and say, nope, we're just for the thing that we've always known to be true, instead of saying, this is a really great opportunity to open up dialogue on a public health issue and, for the health of our American citizens, to figure out, are we really doing it the best way? And if not, what are the best practices for fluoride use at this point? And then feel good about that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we need to get you on a PR team of today's Good Morning America.
Yes.
Let's get you on.
Yeah. See, it's time, Jeff.
So this is what's happened is I've gone for 8 minutes.
Is your house okay?
Yeah, maybe not so much. There is in the air return for our main air conditioning unit in the house. In the air return, there is something that is sparking. There's an actual arc. We could hear the popping, and I looked down in there, and my brother-in-law happens to be an electrician, so I had him come over, and he took a video of it. He actually got down in there, and there is something that is actually arcing in there. And a lot of our house does run on gas. So, we're a little bit of concern there. So we can't get the spark to stop. I shut the AC unit, but
did that stop it or no?
No.
No. Wow.
No. Yeah. So if I don't have a house tomorrow, I will be coming to live with one of y'all.
I'm the closest, so you come home.
And the weather's better.
And the weather is only a little better. Yeah, only a little better right now. It's just so cold here.
Did you guys solve this fluoride dilemma while
we did?
Yeah, it sounded like
what we've proven is that there's a healthy debate to be had. And
of course there is.
I'm a member of the AIDA and I'm a member of the AGD, and I'm so disappointed that their only reaction is to just plant their flag. Yep, I'm on air. You can go ahead and take my memberships away. They've planted their flag in the same sand and said, we believe that fluoride is true and that, we should continue to do that. Instead of saying, wow, for the first time ever, someone wants to talk about dentistry on a national scale, and we have a platform to actually figure out best practices. Now that we have 60 years worth of data, now that we have a myriad more tools and implementation strategies, now that we have pediatricians also doing fluoride varnish, now that we have it trickle down in a lot of our consumable goods, let's have a real conversation about exposure.
That could come from that. If you think about it, what is the worst
What's
thing?
the worst? You do what's best for people?
Right. The worst thing that could possibly happen is we got it wrong. Right? I mean, that's
okay.
I'm not saying we did get it wrong. What I'm saying is the worst thing that happens is a group that on a national level says, you know what, we were following the science as long as we had the science available to us that we had, but now we have some new science and we are moving with the times. And how does that negatively impact you? No one looks at you badly. That's what medicine does, is it evolves. Right. It's like, we're not doing anything the way we did it in 1950 or 1960. Everything evolves. So we have to be wrong on some levels in order for us to change and do something different. Why can't we have those conversations?
Amber? Wow. I know.
I don't know why we can't have those conversations. I think it's so important, and it gives us a opportunity to improve the standard of care that was set
absolutely
decades ago.
But without getting overly political, this is what paralyzed us during the pandemic. Was the fact that nobody could have a conversation, that that if you did any kind of a study or participated in any kind of study or offered any kind of anecdotal evidence, it was labeled as misinformation and not, another idea that should be discussed. It's just, it's all how it's labeled.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, as a medical provider and as a scientist by nature, I never want...
You can't be a scientist. You're a girl.
Did that just happen? I never want to be in this community when we stop.
Wait a minute. Everyone out there knows.
They've now hate you.
No. Everyone out there knows that I absolutely proclaim you as the smartest person in the room, in any room that I go into. No. And no one thinks I think that way. It was just a funny joke.
I know.
Maybe not such a funny joke.
Maybe it fell really flat. If Chad were here, he would have laughed.
He would have laughed.
He would have laughed.
Yeah, but look at the audience.
Only
you're outnumbered.
I don't want to be a part of the clinical community and part of medicine when we stop critically thinking and stop problem solving. Yeah. Like that's not why I got into this profession, and it has zero interest to me. So, if the fluoride debate will be very interesting to watch, because if we behave as we have recently been behaving with science in general, and there's, a lot of other reasons why we make decisions, then it becomes more and more disenchanting to be a part of that big experiment, frankly. I love critical thinking. It's the thing that I know, Amber, you love it too. You sit down and every day is a new challenge and a new problem. And every patient that walks in needs a new recipe to solve that problem. And I love developing that and workshopping it with patients to figure out best strategies. And sometimes, Jeff, to your point, it's scientifically driven. And honestly, sometimes it's anecdotally driven. What are you seeing working in your hands, in your patient population, with the people that you work on, to say, I don't have any data to prove it, but by gosh, I've now seen 10 people respond to this particular thing very uniquely. And I think it's at least worth trying. And there's no negative long-term side effects. That's how new treatment modalities.
Well, sometimes you don't have the 5 to 10
come
years
online
for it to be literature driven, right? You don't have.
Well,
you
most
got a patient in front of you. You don't have 5 to 10 years to wait for that paper to come out.
No, and most literature, most science is driven by usually a large part of anecdotal findings. Right. But they're like, hey, we need to figure out why this worked.
Right.
We can't just rely on Jen's patient population anymore. We've got to actually go take it to a lab and figure out why the heck it worked,
For sure. I love nerding out with you too. I didn't even get to do it the whole time.
Oh, well, we don't want your help.
We're working.
Yeah.
But
no fire at my house. All right, we're at 9:29. We did not even get to talk.
Okay, let's talk about fire.
One of the things did you get to talk about nervous system regulation at all, or?
No.
Okay.
No,
I didn't
we
think so because
we
I
can do
left
that
on
another
fluoride.
time.
No,
Yeah,
and then
we'll
I
have her on
came
again.
back. Yeah, I came back and it was fluoride. So we are drawing to the close of our show. I apologize that I had to leave, but my wife really needed to be assured that we were not going up in flames during the middle of the show. She's like, Jeff, you know that this is a hobby for you. You don't make a lot of money doing this. Our livelihood is not
Nice.
depending on you being out there right now, and our house is about to burn.
Yeah, like you have to make a choice now.
But anyway, Amber, thank you for joining us. You know the mad respect that I have for how hard you work to bring great science to a lot of people, and you're a tremendous educator. For you've just not been doing that long, but you do it as well as anyone out there doing it for triple the time. So so much respect for what you're doing. Thank you for your contributions to dentistry and what you do with mission work and everything that you do. It's so much fun to lecture around someone like you and to be around someone like you who cares so much for the patients and for our profession as a whole. With that said, Amber will also be lecturing in Mexico, in Tulum, Mexico, where AIDA will be hosting its Aspire event. And the dates for that, I'm actually going to pop this up on the screen real quick. And there it is. It came out nice now. I put it up during the pre-show and it didn't look very good, but now it looks better. We are so proud to be partnered with AIDA Group and AIDA Education, really trying to help promote independent dentistry and to keep independent dentists independent. And again, there is nothing in this group that is against DSOs or to talk bad about DSOs, but there is certainly a place for dentists who want to maintain that sense of independent practice. And there are people like Amber who have, gone down one path and then said, hey, maybe this isn't the path I want to go down. How do I come back? And that's really what AIDA is all about. It's just about helping people who want to practice independently, be able to do so. And even if it's not practice independently, to think independently, because nothing says you can't be an amazing clinician and care about your patients as a part of a DSO or private equity group. So with that said, Aspire will be happening January 23rd through the 26th. There are a couple of seats left, not many. This has sold out almost every year I've been a part of it. It's an incredible event, great parties, great education, great camaraderie. I mean, I just can't say enough about this. All three dinks will be there. Amber will be there. So many great lectures going on at this. So much great free time stuff going on, and the parties are off the hook too. And because you are a part of Dinks, Aspire and the AIDA Group have offered to give a $499 tuition for a few amazing days in Tulum, Mexico. So we hope we'll see you there. We'll have some links on our Facebook page. We hope that you will come down and join us. It's always a ton of fun. Maybe we'll throw some video up in some of our posts this week. But Amber, can't wait to see you. JB, can't wait to see you. And love you all. Thanks for being with us for another episode of Dentist in the Know. And we wish you all a good night.
Have a great night.
Thanks again, Amber.
Thank you.